Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Job Evaluation Manager webinar. My name is Kayla Bittner, and I'm a member of Hay Group's team. I'd like to start off with just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Please note that you can maximize your screen in the upper right corner to make the slides easier to read. The webinar is in listen-only mode, but we encourage you to send your questions through the chat feature located at the bottom left of your screen. At the end of the webinar, we will be reviewing your questions. Today's call is scheduled for 60 minutes. We'll spend about half this time going through the presentation, and we'll leave the rest of the time for questions. Lastly, please know that all attendees will receive a copy of today's presentation. At this point, I'll pass it over to Dave Borbach to kick us off.
Hey, thanks, Kayla, and welcome to our webinar. Appreciate all of you all coming in. I'm Dave Borbach. I'm the U.S. JEM Product Manager. You can see my face sitting there on the screen in front of you. I'm joined with a colleague, Kevin Coogan, who's one of our JEM superstars and business process leader in our Philadelphia office. And also I'm particularly delighted to be joined by Ed Drum, who's the Corporate VP of HR Administration. Ed's with Laureate Education, and you'll hear more about them from his base down in Baltimore. What we wanted to do today was to start off by showing you the agenda. Let me just jump over there. What we'll do is obviously we'll have these introductions. The focus of the presentation, of course, is on Hay Group Job Evaluation Manager, which is our online system for facilitating job evaluation. So we want to talk about JEM, but we also want to provide plenty of time so that Ed can talk about Laureate Education's experience, why they use Hay Group, why they use JEM, and the kinds of experiences they've had. Obviously, we'll do a live demonstration. Kevin and I will be running a demonstration here in a few minutes. And as Kayla mentioned, we have a lot of time. We've allotted a fair amount of time to answer your questions. So let me add to her comment and just simply say, if you have a question, use that chat feature. It's on the left-hand side of your screen. Send us a note, and at the end of the presentation, we will address those questions. Now, we wanted to start with a couple of polling questions, and simply just asking you all, where do you store your job grades and evaluations? Where are you storing them right now? In some cases, you might say we're doing it in Excel. In other cases, you'll say, well, geez, we're using a SharePoint, an HRIS. Well, we're using a variety of different opportunities. What you'll find is that as you answer the questions, you'll jump into a screen so that you'll see the results as they come in. You can see that Excel is getting right now still much of the use, although there are a variety of other approaches as well. And you can also see that there are some organizations that are still keeping results in paper format. That's not uncommon. As you can see, 1 in 10 of the organizations right now are doing that. So we've had 37 different responses. About half are using Excel. As you can see, perhaps a quarter or so using SharePoint. The HRIS being used by a bit more than a third, and some folks using paper format. So kind of interesting. Here we have up to 42 responses now, and you can see the mix of replies. Well, let's try another question. So we store job evaluations predominantly in Excel and in the HRIS. Where do you store job documentation? And if you'll go ahead and click the response there, you'll see that once again a variety of different responses will come up. And as others come in, those of you who have responded will notice that the shared drive is right now quite common, or a SharePoint. Again, we're seeing some use of paper format. Sometimes it's being kept on a personal hard drive, which makes it tough to share. As you can see, some folks say we don't have job documentation or it doesn't apply. We've had 44 responses to this question as well. Well, what you'll see as we get into the JEM demonstration and move further along in our presentation is that JEM provides a single source of truth. It provides a single database that allows you to store job documentation, store all job evaluations, store the rationales, provide the history, and make that available to any authorized user no matter where they are, so long as they have access to the Internet. Now, as I commented, the focus of today's today's seminar is on JEM. It's our online system that facilitates job evaluations. Again, it works for organizations. We have a number of JEM clients that have a single location, and they simply find JEM useful for storing the information for them. We have some that operate across different states or different locations within a state, and obviously they use JEM because it allows them to provide continuity. And as you'll hear from Ed Drum in just a few minutes, there are some of our clients who operate in a number of different countries, and JEM provides the mechanism for them to keep all the results consistent in a global way. But why do we evaluate or level or grade jobs in the first place? When we talk with our clients about why, some of the kinds of common responses that we hear back are shown on the slide in front of us. Now, some organizations, and I'd say the majority of our clients, have a single purpose, and they say, we evaluate jobs because it helps us with pay. It allows us to get data into and out of reward surveys. It allows us to create salary grades or levels. Those levels and grades that we create can be consistent across locations and countries. We certainly have a number of clients who use our job evaluation methodology because it's defensible and it reduces the risk of lawsuits which allege adverse impact. Now, some of our clients also use job evaluation to support the creation of a talent development framework. It turns out that there's a relationship. We found a relationship between the pattern of factor scores in the Hay Group job evaluation process and the kinds of behavioral competencies which lead to success on the job. And what Hay Group's been doing, we've been doing this now for about 15 years, is really focusing on that relationship to make sure that we're developing career paths and promotional opportunities that make sense, that increase the likelihood of success when somebody gets a promotion. So we're seeing a linkage to talent development. And then other clients say, we use job evaluation because it helps us focus on organizational design. They use the job evaluation results to make sure that the jobs are designed appropriately, that the reporting relationships make sense. For example, they may analyze the organizational structure and make sure that there's a reasonable gap between a boss and a subordinate, a boss and superior, to make sure that we have people who are being developed so that they can step into the next job. We don't want to have jobs which are too close together. That typically is simply a waste of organizational resources. Neither do we want to have jobs which are too far apart because it means that we have a very difficult time developing our people. Now, what we did is we pulled those different points together into the graphic that's on the screen just now. What you'll see in the middle of this document, as this illustration, is the work measurement, which is what job evaluation is. It's the measurement of work. Work measurement, job evaluation, gives us the power to figure out the right value of the job. Are we paying the job appropriately? It allows us to make sure that people are aligned with the right jobs, that they fit into the jobs that they're assigned to, and that they're given the appropriate kinds of promotional opportunities. And it also allows us to align the organization and make sure the organizational structure makes sense. So what JEM does is help us manage this whole process of job evaluation and enables us to get these kinds of results from it. Now, before we go into the JEM demo itself, we wanted to go over to our friend and client, Ed Drum, who will introduce himself and talk a little bit about Laureate Education.
Hi, this is Ed Drum speaking. I've been with Laureate 7 years. We're a big company now. We have over 70,000 employees. We're in 29 countries. We're looking at expanding into a number of more countries. When I started here, we were a much smaller company. And I probably ought to flip into the next screen. And we really had to decide. When I started, I was really the only compensation person working here, and I wore a number of other hats. I think there were 3 of us in the Corporate Human Resources Department and not many people working in HR out in the field. So and we had no job evaluation methodology at all and very little related to compensation other than paying people in their paycheck. So I had to decide what's the best way to go about tackling this big organization and setting things up, so we could effectively manage compensation. And having worked at other companies, I was familiar with a number of methodologies. But another factor is without the HR people available in the field to work with us, I thought, how am I ever going to get market data to do anything in compensation? At some of the other companies that I had worked for, even if we didn't use the Hay methodology at the headquarters in the United States, we did use it globally because they had the Hay PayNet system. And I knew that I could go out and purchase surveys and access the data at my fingertips through PayNet, which would be the most effective way to get my hands on the data without any staff at the time and without any staff in the field. We did have a few people out in the field, however, so I really picked up the phone and I called the head of HR in Europe. I talked about a number of different ways we could go. I said this, or hey. And he came back and he said hey. He said hay was very widely used, very widely penetrated in Europe. It was well respected. He had a lot of academics on his staff. Laureate's really an education company that's in the university level business of education. And he said he would prefer to use hay in Europe. I then picked up the phone and called our head of HR in Mexico and went through the same list, and he gave me the same answer. He had been with Pepsi Cola, and I knew that Pepsi used hay globally for their purposes. Another thing I did was look into the education arena. A lot of universities, especially public universities, keep their information on websites that are available to you. And what I kept on saying was, hey, 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 hey. And the reason is that a lot of the employees within the educational arena are PhDs, professors, and hey is really a methodology that you can explain to them and they can understand it and they can come out to the same conclusion that you do. And I don't know about you, but in my career, the most difficult people to deal with in compensation are IT professionals and PhDs, engineers. So it gave us a really solid methodology. Another thing is, with the staff that we had on hand globally, sporadically around the world, hay is the oldest, most widely used methodology. It has been, it still is, it probably will be long after I retire. And I thought that it was kind of the path of least resistance working with the HR staff that we had. So when I went down to Brazil to implement the hay program, the people in Brazil got the hay guide charts out of their desks written in Portuguese, and they had used hay at other companies and they knew exactly what they were doing. When I went to Malaysia, the HR director got his hay guide charts out of the drawer and we started working together and were able to use hay. So there are a lot of different reasons why we selected hay as the methodology that we were going to use for job evaluation and selected hay PayNet to make things easy on ourselves. Gradually, we hired a really fantastic staff in corporate compensation here. And, we rolled, the company grew, we rolled the hay methodology out throughout the entire company. We have virtually all of, every day we're hiring people. I'm sure we have some ungraded jobs, but we have virtually all of the jobs and all of the people graded using the hay methodology across the company. And it really gave us a common platform, like a common language that we could talk to that everybody understood. So, when we started using hay, we actually went out and went through the methodology in a number of locations without having a salary structure. Then I came back and I used the work that we had done on spreadsheets, on Excel spreadsheets, and I came up with a salary structure. And what I came up with was so close to the standard hay salary structure that I decided it was best to use what hay uses, because then we wouldn't have to do a lot of manipulations within the PayNet system to get the analysis that we needed to do our jobs. But down the road, eventually we met with Dave and some other people at Hay, and they introduced the JEM system to us, which really was not available when we started working on the program. We got a demo, we loved it, and I guess, should go to the next screen.
Whoops. Ed, that next screen is a little bit further along yet.
Oh, okay.
What we were thinking is before you get into that screen, we were going to go ahead and show folks what we mean by JEM and give them the quick JEM demo, and then come back and give you an opportunity to talk about how you've been employing it.
Sounds good.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okie doke. Well, let's go then. Ed, thanks very much, by the way, for those very kind remarks and background about why you're using Hay Group. What job evaluation does is it helps organizations design and maintain and administer job analysis and job evaluation. Now, its full name is Hay Group Job Evaluation Manager. We all think of it as just simply JEM, Hay Group JEM. This is a web-based solution. Because it's on the web, it means that any authorized user can get access to JEM anywhere in the world, no matter where they are, whether it's day or night. As long as they have access to the Internet, they can get access to JEM. So we have a very nice ability to give people accessibility to the system. And if you look at the 5 little boxes there across the bottom, you'll notice that JEM gives us the ability to store and find job documentation. If you have a job with the job description attached to it, it's going to be in JEM. It's going to stay there. And even if the person who put it there promotes, moves into a different role, or hits the lottery and moves away, their work is still left behind. Their rationale is left behind. So it allows us to store and find job documentation. It easily allows us to evaluate and grade jobs. And Kevin and I will show you a couple of different examples of that during the session today. Obviously, it serves as an archive, as the single source of truth about job evaluation. Instead of having something written down or something in someone's memory, which is fragile, we have it written down. It's available to us. We can simply go back and look it up. We're going to show you some of our very slick comparison reports that allow us to assess how a new job fits into an organizational structure. And the other thing that JEM does, and what we'll try to demonstrate, is it allows us to manage the various processes. When you start to go, for example, from an Excel-based approach, or from a paper-based approach, or from an approach that's a little bit more fragmented, when you put in a system like JEM, what it allows you to do is to rethink the way that you're doing work and actually come up with some ways of doing things in a smarter fashion. When we talk to our clients about the amount of time that JEM saves them, what we typically hear back is that they save somewhere in the vicinity of 20% of the time they simply get back. So a task that would have taken them 5 days only takes them 4. Now, at this point, what we'd like to do is go into a JEM demonstration. So my colleague, Kevin Coogan's going to pick up now, and he'll share his desktop, and you'll see the actual JEM screen show up.
Thanks, Dave. And as Kayla mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, it may be helpful for the demo to go into full screen mode. There's a button at the top upper right-hand corner for full screen. Mm-hmm. So this is the home page of JEM. This is where you land when you log into JEM. The basic layout of JEM has a navigation bar across the top with drop-down menus that allow you to work in JEM and access various settings. Down the left-hand side here, we have wizards, which are basically shortcuts to the most common tasks in JEM. Now, what we're going to do today is a functional demo of JEM. We're going to create a job. We're going to provide some context around the job. And then Dave's going to walk us through going through the evaluation of the job. With that, I'm going to click on Add a New Job. In this screen, we're going to enter some job details. So JEM automatically assigns us a job code. We can use the one that's been assigned, or we can overwrite it with our own code. If we want to, we can tag this job as either a reference or benchmark job. And we can also assign the grading scheme to the job. The next couple fields down here are what we call custom job properties. So these are set up specifically for each organization, and these can be anything related to the job. such as functional area of the job, geographic location, or maybe the business unit. So what these custom properties do is allow us to sort the database. So say if we want to find all the jobs in human resources or all the jobs at a certain work location, we need to put a custom property into JEM that allows us to do that. These properties being displayed here today are some examples of what clients have used in the past. Now, for the purposes of the demo, the job I'm going to be creating is going to be based in the U.S. and is going to be an HR job. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now, JEM sends us a message that the job was saved successfully, and now we see two new tabs that have appeared, Context Items and Evaluations. So here in Context Items, this area allows us to easily store job documentation that's going to be related to the evaluation. So this context can be job descriptions, questionnaires, org charts, maybe hiring requirements, any information that you want to provide context for the evaluation. Now, how we do that is click on this paperclip. Now it's sending me to my desktop to upload a document, and I have a job description there. So now you can see it's here in the context items. You can see that it is a Word document. The system set up to handle multiple file types. We can see who was modified by and the date and the time that it was last modified. What I'm going to do here is set this as the current job description for the job. So what setting as the current description does is over time we're likely to accrue a history of job documentation in here, and this facilitates marking one of those as the job description that was used when you evaluated the job. That prevents you from having to dig through a whole list of attachments to see what the current job description is. Another thing setting that as the current job description does is on the job details screen we now have a new row for current job description along with the title of the file I uploaded with a hyperlink. So I click on the title of the job. What JEM's going to do is go out and pull down the job documentation that was uploaded. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, who's going to talk us through adding some evaluations.
Dave, are you? Is your phone muted by chance? We can't really hear you.
Kayla, I was doing a very nice explanation with a muted phone. I'm sorry about that. On the Evaluations tab, what we're going to do is show you a couple of different options. A number of you on the webinar are existing Hay Group clients, and what we'd like to do is show you how the process works when you're using the full guide charts. But the full guide chart process, which has been around for about 70 years, is the most widely used process in the world today. This is the one that Ed was speaking about a bit earlier. That process is very good for going in and building a benchmark set of evaluations, for putting the initial structure together, for getting the whole process put into place. But what some of our clients find is that once they've built the initial structure, they can start to move faster. They don't need the power of the full guide charts, and they move to something we call a streamlined approach. So what we're going to do is we'll show you the full guide chart approach. We use that. It's our most powerful approach. We use that when we're building the benchmark sample. We use that when we're evaluating any particularly thorny jobs, but then we'll also go in and show you the streamlined approach, which we use otherwise. There are a variety of other options that are available in JEM, and if you have questions about those, for example, job family models or other kinds of streamlined approaches, please let us know. So Kevin's going to go ahead and click Full Guide Charts, which will bring up the Hay Group guide charts. Now, those of you who have seen these are aware of how they look. Some of you, it might be a bit new. The Hay Group process is one that thinks about work the way you think about almost any process. Any process requires input, throughput, and output. When you're thinking about a job, the input is the knowledge and the skills that the job holder brings. The throughput are the decisions that they make, the problems that they confront, the the alternatives that they think up, and then the output or the accountabilities they have for achieving end results. So the Hay Group process is one that looks at input, throughput, and output. This particular screen is one that looks at the input factor, and what we're seeing here are choices that might be made that show the technical depth and breadth of the job. That's on the left-hand side. We look at the job's requirements for knowing about and being able to integrate in a managerial sense different functional components, whether it's elements of human resources or whether it's a variety of different separate functions and entities within an organization. For example, a general manager needs to know R&D, needs to know how to market, needs to know how to manufacture, needs to know how to sell and how to service. If we're thinking about an HR job, an HR manager in particular, which was the job description which Kevin loaded, what we'd probably do is we'd come down to level F, the seasoned professional level. That would be characteristic of a job that has a university degree plus, 7 to 10 years of experience, kind of required at a minimum. Now, when Kevin clicked that F level, you can see on the right-hand side it actually brought up some explanatory language which describes the level of job that we're talking about. So that's just one of the processes that we put into JEM, which makes it easy for people to learn the new process, to be reminded about what the factors refer to when they're coming along. Well, without teaching you the full guide chart evaluation process, what we might do is say it's a seasoned professional. If it's an HR manager, it's managing related components, so it's managing compensation, benefits, employment, employee relations, talent development. It's managing a variety of different components. So we put that into the related category, which is the column there roughly on the middle of the screen, and we'd say this job needs to have a very high level of communicating and influencing skills, because sometimes this job needs to go out and work with people and to turn somebody who's balking at an approach into someone who's willing to implement the approach and move forward with that particular human resource process. Well, what that does is that brings us to a level of points. Kevin's cursor is actually sitting in the center of that box, and if we click the 400, what it's going to allow us to do is to select a particular factor pattern, which is an F23. It's an F technical depth. It requires a related level of managerial integration. It requires a high level of human relations skills. And when he clicks that F23 selection, what it's going to do, Kevin, go ahead and do that if you would. What it's going to do is put the evaluation in the upper left-hand corner. You can see it sitting up there for us. It then takes us to the second chart, and the second chart deals with the throughput or the problems the job solves, and we'll focus on that. Now, incidentally, some of you are noticing the different colors in the chart. The blue shaded areas are combinations which are not very likely. They're kind of implausible evaluations. We have some which are yellow, which means they're not common, but they might be possible, so we can use those. And the boxes which are unshaded are boxes which are commonly used. In problem solving, again, without teaching you a whole methodology, we'd probably say that this job has clearly defined problems. That is, it's being told what it needs to do, but it's not being told specifically how to do it. So it have clearly defined problems, and it's probably going to be the kinds of issues that require coming up with some new solutions. That is, it's not just picking from a variety of precedents, but it's a job that's going to have to figure out how to adapt, how to accommodate new circumstances that arise. Because, of course, most of us in the call are in human resources, and we know that the greatest source of diversity and problems comes from people. So if Kevin clicks on the E4 43%, what that will do is select the problem-solving component, and as you'll see when he clicks that, JEM's going to automatically navigate to the third factor, and the third factor looks at accountability or responsibility or the focus of the job on end results. What we would do here is we would look at the job's freedom to act. That's the job's freedom to take action. all jobs have a level where we say there are certain problems that people who might report to us solve, and the issue doesn't get to us at all. There are certain things that we can do on our own, where we can say there are certain actions that we can take, and also all of us know that there's certain actions that we have to refer to our boss about first, and that's called freedom to act. In this job, it's most likely clearly directed. That is, the individual is being told, the job is being told, these are the kinds of results that need to be achieved. They're being told what they need to achieve, but how those results are achieved are largely up to the job holder. So there's a good bit of latitude. So we probably see this job as an E level. And Kevin, those numbers are small for me. I'd be looking for a 200-point job. It's probably an E. 4C is the category. The 4 reflects the magnitude, the size of the organization in which this job operates, and the C is a measure of the impact of the job. An HR job, unlike a line manager, gives advice. We contribute towards line managers as they achieve results, and of course we contribute to a fairly large number of these folks. We provide contributory advice. So we'd select the E4C evaluation for 200 points. When we do that, JEM adds up the total number of points. You can see that on the screen. It's putting in the Hay Group reference level, which you can see as well. So it's a Hay Group reference level 20. Those of you who work with PayNet know a level 20 job. It's also telling us it's an A1 job, which means it's a staff kind of position and has the behavioral competencies which are appropriate for that level of job. Now, the reason why we call this page the rationales page is because it's exactly where we can start to key in reasons why a job's been evaluated the way that it has. So what we can do is we can click on rationales, and Kevin, if you would just go ahead and enter a couple of comments there with regard to the know-how rationale. It's basically a place to write down why we evaluated the job the way that we did. Sometimes when you're evaluating a job, there's some pressure for it to be either evaluated at lower or higher than where you all end up. And what the rationales does is to say, here are the circumstances behind the evaluation, here's the reason why we selected the choices that we did. So you can see we can just have those kinds of notes. We also have the ability here on this screen to set the evaluation status. The evaluation status simply says, is this a job which is in process? Is it a draft evaluation that we're still talking over? Is it a current evaluation, the one that's been approved and is now in place? Or is this an evaluation that we used to have in place but we're now archiving for historical purposes? Kevin's going to go ahead and select current and then click Save and Close, which will bring us back to the screen where we started. And you'll now notice that the Job Details tab has not only the full job evaluation line sitting there, it also has that the current job description showing there, so you have all the information in one stop available to you. So that's the full job evaluation process, very much in a nutshell. Now, we do have a streamlined approach, so Kevin's going to jump over to the Evaluations tab, and we'll click the Streamlined 3-step approach. And this 3-step approach is very much designed for organizations that have already built a basic structure, and now we need to slot in a variety of other jobs. We don't need the power of the full guide charts because we can simply move more quickly. Now, the first question we have is, how does the job deliver value to the organization? That's called the profile. Plant managers, call center managers, sales managers, line managers are in a core service delivery role. Jobs like ours in human resources, Kevin, if you can scroll down just a bit, you'll be able to see analysis advisory. You'll see that about analysis and advisory. These tend to be staff jobs. Human resources, finance, accounting, legal, IT tend to be jobs that fall into this category. We're staff jobs. We provide clear value to the organization, but somebody else is responsible for achieving bottom line organizational results. That second category, the one that's called commercial coordination, that's a category for jobs within an organization that tend to be matrixed or have a lot of connection with different components of the organizational unit, where they're achieving results, but they're often achieving results in collaboration with others. And as you can see there, buyers, project leaders, customer service jobs tend to show up in the commercial coordination. Well, if we're doing an HR job, we'd select the analysis advisory level. So when Kevin clicks that A1 box, it's going to take us over now to a summary box which says, let's look at problem solving. And when we look at problem solving, we can ask the question, are the problems and the issues that this job is dealing with, are they strategic, which shows up on the screen right now. As Kevin scrolls down a little bit, you'll start to see that they start to move into more of an operational category, where it's focused on tactical achievement of results, and then as we move down, it gets operational to the point where we have entry-level professionals. So we have a variety of different options available here in this in the problem-solving screen. Kevin, if you click 29% for a second, if you would, what you're going to see is that when he clicks the 29%, it's going to take us over to the third screen, and the third screen is going to ask us what's the knowledge that's required in the job, what's the overall level of knowledge. And you can see once we've answered the first two questions, we can actually be quite specific about what the job is like. And what you're going to see here is this might be an entry-level position for somebody brand new out of college or university, or it might be somebody that has a little bit more experience than that, but not a whole lot more. So when we load a job up with a certain level of knowledge, we say there's a certain level of problems that they can solve, a certain kind of problem that they can solve, and we can make one of those selections. But Kevin, if you scroll up and click the previous button, we'll go back to the preceding page, and when he goes back there, let's go ahead and click the 43% piece there. And that takes us now to the third step. We're back to knowledge. And this third step is, if you start to look at the language there, you'll see that this is a much larger job. What we've done is design this system so that we can only create plausible evaluations. Based on the first two answers to this three-step process, we're going to give you the ability to say, you can choose any of these options for the knowledge component, but only any of them is plausible, but none others are plausible. Now, just to match it up with what we've done before, let's imagine that we would say that this job's a 400 level, which is like a departmental manager. Go ahead and click 400. And what you're going to see is that this is going to take us over to a rationales page. Up in the upper left, you can see that we don't have the details behind the full job evaluation method, but you can see that this streamlined approach is connected with the full job evaluation method. So instead of going through and figuring out the evaluation, the specific factor evaluation for knowledge, for know-how, we simply assign points. We did the same thing for problem solving and for the accountability measure. So this gives us an ability to make a connection. It allows us to move very quickly. We can move fast. We can deal with a large number of jobs in a fairly short period of time. And because it's connected to the guide charts, if we have any questions, if it turns out, for example, that you're evaluating the jobs and you just can't get agreement using this three-step approach, you can always use the more powerful full guide charts to resolve any particularly thorny issues. But most of our clients that are using this approach find somewhere between 85 and 95% of their jobs are amenable to it. They simply use the three-step approach and move very quickly. Kevin, would you go ahead and convert this to a current evaluation and then click Save and Close there? And once again, when he does this, we're going to go back. You're now going to see that the evaluation has been replaced. We've replaced the old evaluation with the new one. If you go to the Evaluations tab, what you'll see on the Evaluations tab is that the old evaluation isn't written over. It's remembered. It's simply marked as archived. We still have that information. We have the new evaluation there as well. So those are just a couple of the job evaluation methods which are in JEM. We have a variety of other approaches. If you're interested in those, please let us know, and we'll be happy to arrange a personal demonstration. But Kevin, let me come back to you now so that you can show a couple of the very slick JEM reports.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. The first thing I want to show is the job overview screen. So on this screen, it's basically a listing of all the jobs available in the database. And in here, you can facilitate finding jobs via the filters. So currently, right now, there's a filter on to show us only jobs located in the U.S. We can also control which columns are displayed in this view by looking at custom views. This helps us to locate jobs quickly and run reports. Here we can see the job here that Dave evaluated using 2 different approaches. So as I hover over reports, you can see we have a set of standard reports. Today I'm going to run you through 2 examples of reports. The first I want to show you is a list report. What the list report is a tabular export of all the data in JEM. In this case, I'm exporting it to an Excel version. So what most clients use this report for is to make a connection back to their HRIS system or to do some further type of analysis in any of the data in JEM. The next report I want to show you is the job level matrix report. Again, this report will be published in Excel. And what this report does is it facilitates the ability to create a matrix of all jobs in JEM. And what it does is it plots them out into a matrix with the grades running down the left-hand side, and in this case, job families running across the top. So what this report does is allows us to see possible career progressions within job families and also do comparisons and internal equity across job families across the horizontal. If you've ever tried to create this type of matrix manually, you can appreciate how easy and fast it is in JEM to do this type of analysis. And it's a real-time report, so you can see here's the demo job that Dave just ran through and evaluated. The last thing I want to cover in the JEM demo is the help menu. So JEM offers some online support and training. As we saw in the evaluation piece, there is a help text that pops up and helps define what is on that page. There's also a 59-page user manual available for download. And finally, there's an online interactive training program. The program is self-paced and on-demand. It allows you to select from any of the 10 learning modules and do JEM training on your own at your own schedule. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed so that he can share some of his experiences in using JEM.
Okay. We, as I mentioned before, when we started working on evaluating our jobs, we started with just a raw spreadsheet. And we had a number of issues with that. It was really the only tool available, so we went and used it, and we did it effectively. But, you know, when you're looking at guide charts that have like 1,000 numbers on them and rows and columns, you know, we had a tendency sometimes just to pick up the wrong data and put it in the spreadsheet. Or we might just type it incorrectly. We were doing everything manually. They were hard to use. The data was decentralized. We typically would have problems with different versions of spreadsheets, and we'd have to cut and paste from one spreadsheet to another. So it was the typical issues that you'd run into anything you're doing on spreadsheets, especially on a large-term basis. When we got JEM, we were really happy with it. The one thing that it really did for us, in addition to making things much more accurate, it really sped up our process. And once we got into the product, we just started using it wherever we would go to work on grading jobs and setting up structures. And it has tools built into it that help minimize errors. With the spreadsheets, we didn't have anything built into it. And there are some things that you saw in the demonstration that are just bad combinations of factors that you're selecting. And when you do that on JEM, you'll get an error message or you'll get a warning saying, hey, this does not go with that and you need to look at it again. It got rid of the manual guide charts that we were using. It got rid of all the cutting and pasting. It made it much more easy to compare positions and compare how we were grading different jobs. We could segregate just one element and sort different ways. Made it very easy to build structures. I know anybody that had to develop those, what we would call strip charts that we just saw on a report, that spent hours and hours and hours developing those things, is very happy just to produce it online in a second by job family, which is really the way we usually did it. All of the data is centrally located. We didn't have to keep 35 different versions of spreadsheets and use them. And it really, we've rolled out access to JEM, we've used it globally, and it really helped to continue us using a consistent language and methodology across the company. So that's at the end of that screen. And it really just made things a lot easier for us.
Okay. Now, we've been asking people to send in their questions using the chat function. I hope you'll be doing that. Ed, before we go into our little wrap-up here and then go into the Q&A section, any other comments from you?
All I can do is really repeat what I said. We love it. It made things a lot more, a lot easier to do. We made a lot fewer errors. It's a lot easier to produce analyses and analyze the data. Our customers across the globe love it. When I went down to Brazil for the first time, in the middle of the exercise we were doing, the head of HR there just kind of blurted out. He said, "We love Ed. Whenever he comes, he gives us, brand new tools that are really useful to us." And it's been a very positive thing for us. It had made all of our jobs handling compensation issues easier.